Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor v World with some pre-season content. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for a very, I don't know if it's highly anticipated, but it's highly anticipated by me, here for a very exciting podcast. That was a lot of work, more work than most of these have been. Something that started a few months ago when Mike and I did the cast assessment, and I was like, or cast announcement, I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to watch Survivor Quebec and Survivor Finland. And then I looked at Survivor Quebec and it said it was 67 episodes. And I think I said 67 episodes. And that seemed like a lot. And yet here we are on the other side of having watched all 67 episodes of Survivor Quebec Season 2 from 2024. And I wasn't alone in doing that. Graciously, my wonderful guest also agreed to watch all of Survivor Quebec. And she is here with me now. It is Sarah Carradine. Sarah, thank you for being here.
Well, highly anticipated by me as well. I cannot wait to talk about it because you and I are basically the only ones that I know who saw it. 67 episodes of it. Secretly, I was a little bit ahead because I'd been covering the Traders Quebec, and Audrey from this season was in it. So I had seen some of it, but I saw it in French. But when I knew I had to talk to you about it, I thought, I need the English subtitles. The English subtitles were hilarious to anyone that speaks any French, but you got through. I had to send Shannon, I had to send you a couple of messages going, when they say snow, that's actually a player's name that they're mishearing. Yeah. And they kept calling Patrice dad because it sounded to the robot that they were saying pup, but they were saying putt.
Right, yeah.
It was so often they were calling him dad, which made me laugh.
It was, like AI subtitles. I'm not going to complain about it because now I'm watching Survivor Finland and the subtitles are much worse. Like, I'm barely holding on. Whereas, like, I was very much following everything that was happening through Quebec. It was a very complicated season. I was still following it. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, obviously they mean that player and not Snow. Like, I can work that out from the context clues. And like, sometimes they would say things. Sometimes they would say things that were audacious. And I was like, is this being mistranslated? But I think it was just real, particularly Audrey, who you mentioned as being on Traders Quebec. She was such like a godmother figure. But at one point she was like, if you turn against me, like you'll go and then he'll go and then he'll go. And I was like, did she actually say that? Or is that a mistranslation? But no, I think people actually a lot of the time were saying wild things and the rest I was just piecing together. But yeah, but firstly, the first thing I want to say, I don't have Survivor Quebec for you all. If the listeners want Survivor Quebec, the way I watched it, I am not in a position where I can pass it on.
We flew to Canada. We flew to Canada.
Yeah. Fun fact about that, I actually did watch the first episode of Genius UK in London. And I thought about how you always say we flew to, and I was like, I did actually do that. Side note. But anyway, I put it at the top of the podcast because now if you ask me for the season, I'm going to know you didn't start the podcast. So that's the first thing. Yeah, I don't have it, but that's fine because we watched it so you don't have to. We watched the whole season.
67 episodes. However, I would say, spoiler, if you can watch it, do watch it. If you can find it, watch it. It's honestly one of the best seasons of Survivor I have ever seen. Yeah, love it.
Okay, no, that's hyperbolic. Firstly, as the two people who watched the season,
yes.
Well, I think some people in Quebec probably watched it, right? But like, yeah.
And I know you're listening, so hello, bienvenue.
That's wonderful. I can't do that. Is it the best season of all time? Like, no, I don't think so. I think
you're misquoting me.
It's not one of. It's okay. In 67 episodes, a lot's going to happen. That's how I feel. There were high highs a lot of the time. It was very exciting. There were low lows where sometimes it would drag for like episodes, but then it would go fast. Because, the episodes were mostly 22 minutes. So that would, we'd get through long stretches that were the length of like a whole other season. Some of the twists were infuriating, but because I was watching it in this massive episodes, I would just kind of move on. Like, some things were a little unforgivable. I'm sorry, in 67 episodes, doing a final 3, unforgivable. You had the time to go down to a final 2 Survivor Quebec. So
they're surprised.
It really was surprising to me. I was like, I can't believe they aren't using this opportunity to do another voting round. But yeah, I mean, there were flaws. There were also high highs. Was I entertained 90% of the time? Yes, which is impressive in 67 episodes. Are there pitfalls? Sure, but I had a good time with it. But I think because I was just going with the flow of it. I feel like if I was podcasting about it, I'd be like, why was there snap edge of extinction for 5 votes in the pre-merge randomly? I'd say things like that. But because I wasn't.
Because they had Audrey is the answer to that. They had Audrey. They had her on the beach for 2 minutes and they went, oh my God, quick, what are we going to do? Okay, on her vote out, we will have Edge of Extinction.
Yeah, and then just for those few votes. Anyway, so we'll cover a bit of Survivor Quebec, and then we'll talk about Kass, the woman of the hour, who's the reason we watched it, who will be on AUV World. We'll talk about her game, which is a very interesting game. But the reason we should talk more about the season before we talk about Kass is that, so basically, Kass was in 2 very dominant tribes, like pre-swap and post-swap. It was a classic story where they were very strong, but at the beginning of the season, they weren't working well together. So they actually go to 3 of the first 4 tribal councils, one of which is not a vote out. They send Snow or Denage to the other tribe as a spy. But yeah, so they go to a lot of the early tribal councils, but then they don't go to tribal council again, and they're not at all through a swap, which we can talk about. She does not go to tribal council for 26 episodes. She's
just chilling.
Yeah, chilling. And I was learning so much about Audrey and Andre and Mary Lou. They weren't the people that I was there to learn about.
You're naming some of my favorite people, though.
I know, me too. But still, that was wild. I was like, when does Kass enter the season? And it's like, we'll talk about Kass. She's just being great, well-rounded, not going to tribal council. The other tribe, Bayan, just like eating each other, just like imploding. While she was chilling, they lived lives. Like Audrey, in only some of the time that Kass was chilling, Audrey was in power, voted out her closest ally for some reason, got voted out herself, went to Snap Edge of Extinction, came back from Snap Edge of Extinction. Kass still hasn't gone to tribal since episode 12. It was wild. It was wild.
But don't you think that makes it a really good season? It was wild. I'm just here for the lulz. I'm here for the lulz. You know me, light on strategy, big on vibes. But yeah, Bayan decided that a really good thing, and I don't know why, no one has tried this before. No one in the history of Survivor, even though it was only the 2nd season of Quebec, there's been plenty of other seasons, but no one has come up with the brilliant idea of voting out all the strong men. Now, I always object at the 1st and 2nd tribal councils where people are saying, got to keep strength in the tribe, and, weak women, get rid of them and keep the men. I object to that, but I was astonished by Bayan's decision to just duck, strong man out, strong man out, strong man out. Strong man jumped at tribal council. Did he jump? Was he pushed?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't talked about the medevacts, the stings, the scorpions, the snake, the poisonous root. I've never seen anything like it.
Yes. So, okay. In the first few episodes, there was a medevac up the top. Then there was also a quit where it was like one of the strong guys. He felt like, I think he was going to go anyway, but he felt like his honor had been questioned in that. So he just quit. It was kind of like he took his toys and went home kind of vibe. And then also, this is one of my favorite things about Survivor Quebec. There were multiple trips to the hospital. But because they clearly didn't want to show them en route to the hospital, the same way they don't show them en route to challenges and tribal and stuff, it kind of ruins the allure. They accidentally created these wonderful sitcom moment hard jump cuts. One of my favorite jokes in sitcoms, where it would be they would be eating the root and be like, this is good. And they'd be like, why does it taste like metal? Hard jump cut, 2 people in the hospital. Wonderful comedy, not on purpose. And then again, Jizlain ends up going to hospital. I don't remember which one was first, but again, the hard jump to the hospital, it was just, I was laughing at their pain, unfortunately, but that was great. And Bayan, the other tribe, Kass is on Nawa most of the time chilling. Bayan, they did decide not only to vote out all their strong men, but also to vote out, and when the other tribe had a plethora of strong men and were just getting it together, also to vote out their number 1 allies. Especially there was one vote where Audrey votes out the strongest guy. At that point, their only really strong guy and her closest ally. And the crazy thing about that vote as well was that they did a Genius-style Extreme Ways flashback. He goes home. This plan has not come together. I'm like, how little am I picking up of this show? That I did not know that was happening, but they hadn't shown it to us. They Extreme Ways flashback, showed the plan come into motion about how they were going to blindside Oliver. who, if anyone saw on my Twitter, I posted all of it at the beginning. He was the one who was like, I'm going to have to blend in, but it's going to be hard because I have a really big hat. And then it cuts to him and he's wearing a really big hat. He got voted out in this extreme ways moment. And yeah, and then Bayan it never gets back. And then the swap for them is even worse. But yeah, what a time. What were your funniest moments, Sarah?
Oh, well, one of the things now, there's Deb. We haven't even mentioned Deb again. She'll be a post-merge, emerge. She will emerge in the post-merge. She was terribly annoyed about almost everything, and yet she was wonderful and everybody liked her. So it was a real puzzle as a watcher that she always had a frown and she was always saying, well, they're like this, and why are they doing this? And everyone's going, oh, we love Deb. We love Deb so much. It's like, okay, if you say so. I did love Deb as well. Very strong. And just after we've got over the scorpion and the poison root and the medevac and all the things that happened. And the quit. Yeah. And the quit. And we've been just playing Survivor for a while. She gets bitten by a snake. She gets bitten by a dead snake. That was very, very funny is not the thing, but she comes wandering back from the medical tent. Yeah, a dead snake bit me. Okay.
Yeah.
But I found them all entertaining isn't the word, but there was a lot of game, but was it good game?
We'll talk about that with Kass. I mean, some of them were playing a very good game. Someone that I loved, who is not the focus of this podcast, but his name was Audrey. He's a 65-year-old man who was like kind of the dad of the tribe. I loved Audrey. And Audrey was blindsided when Audrey voted out Oliver. They were a mutual ally. They were in control. She was like, I don't care about control. Immediately gave up that control, was voted out the next episode, sent to Snap, Edge of Extinction. Because Audrey turned on her because he'd been left out of the vote. He was like, I don't like when that happens. And he connected with two other people, Florence and Mary Lou, particularly them, two people who'd been on the bottom, and voted out Audrey. Later on, Audrey's going to come back. We'll talk about this. I don't know how confusing this is to people. These are just names to people. I hope they're getting how entertaining this was. But basically, it was Audrey and Audrey. It was this whole story. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here. But Audrey spent the entire Edge of Extinction just plotting her revenge on Audrey, who had voted her out, I think pretty fairly, because she had already blindsided their mutual ally. But she's like, I am going to get revenge on Audrey. Gets to the merge, and for things that will actually involve Kass, they have to work together, because otherwise they realize, like, if we split apart, then no one from Bayan will win. How much are we going to be at each other's throats kind of vibe. They work together. Subsequently, which we'll talk about because it's relevant to Kass, Audrey's allies, Mary Lou and Florence, turn on Audrey, which we'll talk about, huge vote. And then he's like, I don't like when people leave me out of votes on my allies, which ironically Audrey had originally done and now had been done by his allies that he had flipped to because Audrey had done it, to vote out Audrey again for the second time. Then we'll talk about it because it's relevant to Kass, but then he flips on them.
It's like, does he flip, Audrey? I have never told a lie in this game. I have never lied in this game. I have never lied in this game.
To be fair, I back Audrey completely. He has one rule: don't leave me out of a vote while turning on my ally. He did Audrey did it. He didn't like it. He comes back with Audrey, and then it's done to Audrey, and he's like, "What did I just say? What is my one rule?
Did I just say?"
Yes. Yeah. So that actually was more complicated than I wanted it to be because it was through so much strategy. But it was a wonderful loop through. But you kind of have to understand this is happening over like dozens of episodes, but we'll get to that because that's like the post-merge that Kass is involved in.
The other post-merge highlight is that the individual immunities are won twice by Florence, twice by Kass, and twice by Deb before a man even gets to touch it. I liked that.
Yes, and unfortunately, a man will win the whole season based on a woman, Kass, enabling him, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
But before we kind of get to Kass being in the season, there's a few things. So we haven't even talked about the swap. This was interesting. So they have the pre-merge, Bayan like implode, Kass is chilling on Nawa, and then they have this interesting swap, which through a lot of convoluted reasons, they got to choose their own tribes, like a school pick'em kind of vibe, and then there was an advantage to swap two people. So it took what ended up being kind of uneven tribes anyway somehow and put Jizlain, who's going to win the season, spoiler alert, really strong guy, put him on the already stronger tribe, and they put Florence, who was also strong, but she was like a smaller woman. She was good at like endurance. Like they had no strength. They put her on the other tribe. So now it was so mismatched. It was like the strongest possible tribe against a tribe that had like no strength. And so this new Nawa, or newer, as I would have called them, and Bayan knew, had we been podcasting about it.
That's what I put in my notes, because I knew that's what you would have called them.
But newer lose every tribal count, like not every challenge, every reward, every immunity. But do you want to talk about what happened the first time they went to tribal council? Because it was actually kind of special.
It was beautiful. I cried. So the original Pick'em left the Nawa, old Nawa, in the 4-3 majority, I think, 3-3 or 4-3. 4-3. And then with the swap, it was 3-3. Yeah, it was 3-3 on new, Bayan
newer.
Anyway, it was 3-3. And these 6 people came together on a beach and fell into each other's arms. They were the best people that any of them had ever met in their entire life.
Crucial that all of those people happened to be at the bottom of their tribes. Like it was Audrey and the people who had been the bottom, like Mary Lou and Florence, and then the people from Nawa who had been on the bottom with Kass was at the top. We'll talk about her time, but like they were on the bottom, so they hadn't really bonded with their old tribes, and then they came together. In the space of one day, and Snow, in the space of one day, they like fully connected. It was literally in one day, because obviously they immediately went to tribal council, but they fully bonded, having not
told each other things that they hadn't said a word of in the previous 525 episodes on their original tribe. They were pair bonded between each 3, and then they became very bonded with the 6. And then they went to tribal, knowing they would go to rocks. So for me, one of the really exciting bits of strategy that happened, and there was strategy, even I noticed, which was we have to vote for the people that we want to save. Yeah. Because then when it comes to rocks, they'll be immune.
Yeah.
I loved that. Absolutely loved that. And they were all bound and determined to go to rocks, and they all arrived, all holding hands 6 ways. And Patrice was trying to have a tribal council. And they were saying, well, we'll answer any questions you have, but we're going to rocks. We're going to vote for this person, that person. They'll be immune. We'll draw. And he made sure that they understood the ramifications. So he said, okay, that's what you want to do. That's what we'll do. Tears, crying, embraces. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. And then the unfortunate thing about that was that it rocked out Dominic
to edge of extinction. I know the worst person to rock out.
Loved Dominic so much. This is such an innovative strategy. So Dominic was a bit of like the clown. He came from the original Nawa, and he had been kind of on the bottom, but like not as much targeted. And he was like the comic relief, not really the clown. That's not the right thing. That's harsher than I mean it to be. But he had a thing where he was like, if I get to day 7, I will tell you my real age, which I think was just 29, like he'd said. But anyway, if I get to day 11, I'm going to do like a party trick. And he like stood on his head. Day 18, like he had this thing where he was like, if you let me get to a certain amount of days, I'm going to do some fun thing. And I'm like, this is a great strategy.
He was going to get in the swamp.
Yeah, because day 18, he was going to get into the bayou, which is this gross swamp in the camp that they were still on, that they had swapped to. He got rocked out on day 17, one day before retirement. It was painful. And then and obviously he doesn't come back from the edge. So that was upsetting. But then was the biggest slog of the season, because then they lost every challenge and they just kept picking off the rest of Nawa who had lost the rock draw. And they didn't want to do it. It was sad, but there was like no strategy. There was like nowhere else there was no other option at any point. So that was a bit unfortunate. That was definitely like the least entertaining part. The other parts, like there was always something going on.
They loved they genuinely, sometimes you think, oh, you've only known each other a day. You're calling each other brother and sister and friend. But there was something very genuine between the 6 of them, and they loved it. They loved themselves. But they knew that whoever fell to the rock, that entire side was going to go if they kept going to tribals, and they pretty much knew they were going to go to tribals.
Yeah.
You know?
No, they kept hoping for the merge, and I was like, yes, merge them. This has been going on for eternity.
3 times they packed up the entire camp and trekked it to challenge, only to take it all back again.
It was
Yeah.
It was funny because when they came back from that Rocks tribal, they were like, but we really bonded when we met yesterday. I'm like, that was yesterday? Because it had been like 3 or 4 episodes of like, because each episode, again, is mostly 22 minutes. So some episodes were often just the reward challenge or just an immunity challenge. And then what they started doing towards the end, instead of having a separate round to get it down to a final 2, for some reason, they would do like so many rewards in one round. Like there was one round where they did the auction, and then they did... the next day, they gave them like their personal items in a cage and told them to find a key. And then they had a reward challenge. I was like, it's not to shame them because they're still out there in the Philippines and I'm here on my couch watching this and, bad subtitles at 2 times speed. But these people have eaten every day at a point. Like Jizlain kept getting picked for the rewards. I'm like, I was tracking it through. I'm like, he's eaten pretty much every day this week. So anyway, they thought that was the way to fill the time rather than taking it to a final 2 that would have a few more episodes of a whole round, but it's fine. So yeah, that was interesting. And I also thought what was interesting was this is a very modern season. Like I'd have to know when they filmed compared to like Titans v Rebels, but it's quite likely that Kass played the most recently of anyone on AUV World. And you can see how much the show is inspired by US Survivor and like modern US Survivor and also Australian Survivor, like challenges from both, twists from both, obviously Edge of Extinction. They had like journeys, like New Era style journeys. From Australian Survivor, they had the twist where like the Jerry style twist where Dinaj was sent as a spy to the other tribe. Like they very much were clearly, like the people who were producing it are clearly watching both Australian and US Survivor. I don't know how much that means like Kass is watching it, but it was very clear that those inspiration points were there.
Yes, and one of the twists that was given to them was the wretched Fire making it final 4, but they were all really excited about that. Like they hadn't known about it, and then they get told about it, and then they're all excited. And the other thing I liked very much was the 2 people with the most votes. Something will happen. So they went.
That was awful. I loved that. I was raging. That was atrocious. Even me trying to have fun and be hands off, I was so angry.
Yeah, because they don't know what that means. They don't know if it's a double elimination. It is that there were a number of versions of what it could be, and I did message you and say, yes, I guessed what it was, which was the 2 people with the most votes go to a challenge.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we lose the marvelous Florence, who I just was
not
fantastic.
Unfortunate. No.
I loved her.
Well, no, what happened was the majority had 5 people. This was in the merge. The majority had 5 people. The minority had 3 people. Top 2 vote getters. They didn't even say. In the translation, it was like, it's not good to be the top 2 vote getters. Basically, I don't know if it was that vague for them, but that's how vague I got it. And then, the top 2 vote getters went to the challenge, which unfortunately they couldn't split the vote. So Audrey, who I love, went to the challenge against Florence. I was like, oh, Andre's going to go here. And I am so angry. And then I watched the next episode. He did win the challenge. And Florence went, as she should have, being on the bottom. So I was like, okay, it didn't actually affect anything.
She did get the most vote.
Yeah.
She did get the most vote.
Well, she actually didn't because they tried to split the vote. But like she was in the minority. As she went as nature intended. But yeah, that twist pissed me off. I was like more and more.
They knew about it on the beach. So it wasn't, dear listener, it was not sprung on them at Tribal Council. They knew ahead of time, but they didn't know what it meant. So they were trying to figure out how to split, and they can't split, which I thought was very interesting. Let's try and work around it. Had it been a straightforward vote out, Florence would have gone. So in the end, it didn't actually alter history. But no, I liked it.
No, that's not, because the thing is, if that's the kind of thing that you can expect in the show, then you should always have a splittable majority. Like you should always play it incredibly safe. And like obviously they can't expect that, but felt bad for a strong majority of 5, which we'll talk about, who had worked to get to that position through difficulty, which we can also talk about. And then we're like, well, if you have the second most amount of votes, which is not how voting works. Like if someone earns to find and correctly play an idol, like you do you, and that is the fear or the risk of being on the bounce back. And then, there are parts of that are extremely earned. But the show just being like, now you need a splittable majority, and they don't even need to have
one round. For one round.
Really, really annoyed me. But nothing annoyed me more than having a final 3 and fire in 67 episodes of my time. 67 episodes.
Those were the worst things for me as well. I thought, yes, you've taken stuff from the US, but sometimes not the good stuff.
Yeah, because this was new. They only found out about fire at the final 6 tribal council, which we'll talk about because it's very important to, I think, Kass's trajectory, which we'll have to speak about in this being the Kass podcast. But yeah, I mean, it was 67 episodes. And then once you like break that down, that the episodes were shorter, like it probably is just more than an Australian Survivor season in time. I've spent a lot of time thinking about
25 or 26, but I like saying 67 because you have to watch it 67. You just do.
It's absurd.
So we are getting on to Kass, everybody. It is her podcast, but can I ask you about what you thought about Audrey? Because I'm obsessed with Audrey. Her skin is so beautiful. I know we shouldn't talk about what people look like, but how she was 67 days. It's not 67 days. It was 42. But how she was that long on the island with that beautiful skin, I don't understand. Anyway, Audrey on the jury.
Yeah, we'll talk about it with Kass.
Oh, you want to talk about it later?
Well, she was spitting facts. Well, it's very important to Kass's game. I'm definitely going to talk about it. We'll get to that because Audrey...
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Patrice was every time saying, you are the jury, and of course you are silent observers.
Oh, you mean... Oh, okay. I thought you meant at final tribal council where she was spitting facts. Oh, she also was like very loud on the jury.
She was thumbs up, nodding, waving her arms around, and I thought, well, to the letter of the law, she is silent, but she is not. She's not putting her point across. Always correct. She had really good reads, but I sort of loved it, and I loved how Patrice couldn't really. I adore Patrice, by the way. Patrice is the host. Everybody.
Yeah, I don't think she should have voted out her number one ally, who was the only strong guy in the tribe. But that was
exactly.
I'm like, look, I don't even have to be like analyzing the show and writing out notes to be like, this was the wrong move. Then she immediately goes
1,000,000% the wrong
move, to Snap Edge. But yeah, and then she's on the jury doing like Taylor Swift heart hands at Audrey, who she hated. But but it got revenge for her, and he's doing the hard hands back, and I'm like, how did we get here? I'm like, no one will understand the journey we've taken with Audrey and Audrey, who are completely irrelevant to
one other person. Do it and watch, and then come and talk to us.
No, they're listening to this. I'm sure it's all made sense. But yeah, so basically, just over the time of Australian Survivor, with 20 people, not 24, with a final 3, not as often as a final 2, with 1 battle back. I'm just saying, a lot of it was on reward challenges, is what I'm trying to say. We watched a lot of filler.
They had a lot. They had a lot of rewards.
There was a lot of killer. There was a lot of killer as well. So, yeah, Kass. We'll talk about Kass. Yes. Okay. So, yeah. So, she's completely immune most of the time. She doesn't go to tribal council between episodes 12 and 38. I checked. In that time, she's like very well-rounded. And like to try and explain Kass, I've heard her game style and trajectory compared to Amanda Kimmel, and I think that's very apt, and we can definitely talk about that comparison.
Yes, I'll co-sign that.
I think
I wouldn't have come up with it, but yes, I think that works.
I didn't as well. But I think as well, her personality is kind of like Haley, but she's not at the caliber of Haley, and that, to be fair, is the highest bar. But I do think she's very well-rounded. She's super social. She's very physical. She wins 2 challenges. She's amazing at endurance, possibly the best at endurance on the AUV World cast, possibly. And she's very strategic, which we'll talk through. She lacks, I think, a little bit of a killer instinct. And that, I think, is what her demise is going to be later on in the season. Well, that she's going to end up, her journey, she will end up losing unanimously at the final tribal council, which was not actually the way that I saw going for her. But in these early days when she's barely going to tribal council, there's not anything to criticize. She's connects with everyone. She's in the majority. She's got these key allies, but then also the minority see her as like a point person they can come to. So she's literally connecting with everyone. She goes on the journey. She finds an idol. She's helping them with challenges. Like, no notes from her until the merge, in which case there will be a big note. But yeah, was there anything else in this pre-merge that you saw from her?
Well, obviously, because I knew I was going to be talking about Kass, every single thing that she did, or every single moment that the camera was on her, I wrote down, and it was like half a page. Not literally.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
We got the idea of her. She did a little bit of narrating, but not very much. She's going to become quite a big narrator in the post-merge. I guess they had to explain how she got to second equal. In other words, a 0-vote finalist along with Audrey. And, many great people are 0-vote finalists. I'm not as down on that as I know some people are. But you got the feeling of her as very pleasant. She never turned anybody away for a talk. She was never sharp or rude. She kind of had quite a bit of sass talking to us in confessionals, but She was smiley. She was liked. She's super strong in terms of endurance, and not just physical strength, but the ability to hold on against such men as there were. So that made her very interesting. Her and Florence, who was also an athlete, were very, very impressive. But if I hadn't been watching for her in particular, I might have wondered where she came from when we get to post-merge.
Yes. Well, because they dominated the whole pre-merge, and I knew she did really well. In my mind, she was a fallen angel. It was actually great to be like anti-spoiled. I just thought that they would come in and dominate. And that is not what happened. It was a shocking trajectory for her and her allies. So basically, she has two close allies. And we'll talk about the Robin Nicole of it all that I just spoke about with not RJP Robin Nicole, but the South Africa Robin Nicole that I just spoke about with Dino on the Rob.
That's a great episode, everyone. Listen to that. It's very entertaining and informative.
Thank you. But when I was watching, I was thinking, I'm like, oh, I just did this podcast with Dino because her and Jizlain are so similar. But basically, she has two main allies, Jean-Michel and Jizlain, these two guys. And all of them are very, like without the toxicity and the hypocrisy and the moralism. So not, I guess, like not really a lot like the Migos, but like they're very Migos coded in that they're super physical. They're like stunningly beautiful. And they've been like dominating the game.
The whole cast is attractive. It's but French. They in particular, yes.
Yeah.
Deb's Belgian.
Yes. I thought they were going to dominate through the whole game. In the first half, Kass briefly is like, maybe we should get rid of Jean-Michel. They're not going to go back to tribal council. But she's like, because Bayan are clearly insane, maybe we should show them that we also can play a big game, which was funny. They're just chilling and they're like, Bayan are doing so much. But she kind of mentions that. But her two closest allies are Jizlain and Jean-Michel. She tells Jean-Michel about her idol and then she regrets it. Jean-Michel was also doing a lot. Like, he lied about being a psychologist, but then he told everyone he had been lying. Like, he wasn't doing himself any favors. But they get to this merge and they should be, you would think, in control. You've got this Bayan group that are so fractured. Audrey's come back from the edge of extinction. They should all be at each other's throats. And we should have... Was it a majority of Nawas?
It's still, there's a majority.
I need to check what it was. So what was it? The final 12 or 11? Here I am. It was the final 11, and we had Ricky, Nabil. I guess there was only 5 Nawas, to be fair, because it was because Audrey had come back. But the whole thought was that Bayan, who had 6 original Bayanese, would never be together. They do get together. There's a lot going on. There's a vote still in play. And Nabil, who's one of their allies, and they've kind of had their own issues because they've all not been going to tribal, but he flips. And Kass is completely blindsided. And Jean-Michel goes home, and Jizlain and Kass are like completely on the bottom. And I'm like, okay. Like, I did not see Kass's game getting in the trenches from the merge vote. I just did a stats podcast with the Survivor Fact Checker about how crucial the merge vote is and how rare it is to win the game if you aren't in on the merge vote. And from the beginning, they lose out on this vote. And this is by far this is her only blindside in the game. And she really has to dig herself out of like a big, big hole here at the merge.
She does have an idol, but she knows that.
Yeah.
And then there's some sleight of hand with Jizlain with a fake idol, which I never knew if people thought was real or thought wasn't. The crucial thing is he's got the paperwork from Kass's real idol, and it seems like the paperwork is what convinces the others, as well as a very clandestine passing of things between the two of them that is, of course, meant to be seen. But these are the actions of people who are not on top. They feel like they're having to scramble's too strong a word, but it's not a ride to the end, which is, again, what, like you, I thought it would be.
Yeah, well, okay, now that I'm looking at this vote as well, it was a 6-5 vote, but Andre had stolen Jizlain's vote. So even though they were more Bayanese, they actually hadn't all worked together because they had been so incredibly fractured through Bayanese insanity through the pre-merge, and they were like in these two factions basically. But because Audrey came back on with Andre, Mary Lou, and Florence, and they pulled Nabil, that was 5, and they stole a vote, that was 6. So she actually shouldn't have been necessarily in a minority coming back from that. But the thing is that at that point, there was like through that long round of the rewards, it was like, no, those two are fully on the bottom. Like now everyone's jumping ship back to Bayan, and like Audrey had been a bit of a connector. So the feeling was like Jizlain and Kass, who were Jean-Michel's closest allies, I hope I'm telling this right, but they were going to be the biggest target. So Kass is doing a lot here that's important. She wins immunity, which is very important. She talks about this at the final tribal council. She does have an idol and Jizlain is going to use that note to bluff his idol. But they do a huge thing here. There's a lot going on in this vote. But yeah, it looks like it should be Kass or Jizlain. And what ends up happening is they flip the vote onto Audrey for the reasons of maybe through bluffing Jizlain's idol, maybe through Kass being immune, but also mostly Audrey's doing a lot. She's been back for one vote.
Audrey cannot not do a lot.
Audrey is... I was learning so much about Audrey
the whole time. She was doing a lot all by herself on Age of Extinction.
She won her way back for one vote. They got this massive vote over the top, vote steal, flipping the bill. Don't know why that rhymed. Came back together with Audrey, who gave her half of an immunity necklace that merged with her half, and these like reconnected amulets that she played that she didn't need. A lot going on. That vote was a big victory for Audrey. But then people were getting sick of Audrey. And as I said at the top of this podcast, we're talking about Audrey. Her own allies turned on her, and Kass and Jizlain obviously voted for her. Nabil switched back, I think. Nabil was doing a lot. And they voted out...
You'd never know where Nabil is.
Yeah. So they voted out Audrey, and then they weren't at the bottom anymore. And the crazy thing is that vote was massive, but then coming back from that, they kind of coalesce into this new five, with Audrey, who was left out of the vote, and Deb and Sebastian, who were also both left out of the Audrey vote. But this is what I think is so impressive about Kass's game, to keep it macro with all these names that people don't know, is that she gets left out of the vote in the merge. That's bad. But then they pull off this big vote, and then from there, she finds like a new refuge. And that was really necessary through this merge. I think there was 2 votes in a row, where like a group actually stayed together. Otherwise, it was very much finding a life raft and jumping around new groups or finding new targets. And
lots
the one
of
kind
alliances
of commonality,
of convenience. Lots of alliances of convenience.
But the one commonality of that was that Kass and Jizlain were, other than the merge vote, after that, were always at the center of that, despite being widely spoken about as by far the biggest threats, such clear, like visible, aesthetic threats. They were the people that people kept coming back to the whole time to form these new groups. And that
they were spoken of and acted like they were on the bottom the whole time. And I don't mean acted like as a bluff. They felt like they were fighting all the time from being on the bottom, and yet they weren't after that. So, yeah, it was very interesting. Yes, you heard a name you hadn't heard before, everybody. Sebastian, he's another person. He's the mayor. He's the mayor of a town. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what ends up happening after that vote is this really fun configuration where there's basically like 4 voting blocks, like the 2 halves of Bayan, but Audrey's now not with his old people because he's mad about Audrey, Kass and Jizlain, and then like Rick and Nabil, who are the other half of Nawa. So it's like both tribes have kind of split and they're all in different voting blocks, but like the voting blocks are trying to work with each other in a circle. Like Group A wants to work with Group B wants to work with Group C, and like it's kind of like that. But actually the 5 that have come together are the voting block of Audrey, Deb and Seb, and Kass and Jizlain. And they've actually come together in a 5 that is going to see them through a couple of votes, which in this merge is actually not only like 10 episodes, but also like a long-term voting group. So that was impressive that they do that. And then it gets to the point where Sebastian is thinking of turning on Jizlain. We can talk about this round at the final 7 because it's very important. But his name starts coming out. They keep getting information back from people, and he ends up being turned on at a 3-1-1-1 vote, even at the final 7, because Audrey left the tribal council. Yes, there's a lot going on. Yeah, and he gets voted out. But it's interesting. He's like, there's just so much time. Like, all the information is coming back to you. I'm like, yes, it's because there's 3 reward challenges every round, Sebastian. If there wasn't. Anyway, Kass won't have to deal with that on AUV World. But then they take out Sebastian. But the interesting things about this is that what's going to end up happening, just on a macro scale, is this podcast so confusing for people who didn't watch Survivor Quebec?
It's confusing to me, and I watched it. So, yeah.
I've got these Survivor Quebec thoughts just like in my head. On a macro scale, what's going to happen is that Kass is going to lose unanimously to Jizlain. to put it into like what we just spoke about with Rob and Nicole, she and Jizlain are this phenomenal partnership. And I do think more equal partners than I kind of ever saw Rob and Nicole.
I completely agree. Nicole was never winning, but there's a world in which Kass wins.
Kass beats anyone who's not Jizlain. But the thing is, Jizlain, like Rob, is still leading it. And there might be some like patriarchal things in that. There probably are, right? The way we like kind of see the strong man leading it. But I think that's kind of exacerbating the fact that they were leading it. But again, like that probably comes down to like the structures that we allow and like men to take charge and whatever. I'm not saying
but he doesn't get there without her. He does not get there without her, I don't think.
He doesn't.
He's very impressive, but
he doesn't.
He needed her as that solid two all the way through from day 1 or 2.
They both do well together. And she speaks in the final tribal council about how her early immunity challenge wins and having the note from her idol is important for like Jizlain's fake idol that he's constantly bluffing with and all of that. And they do so well. Like their partnership together, like as a team, bravo. But the issue is, it is really clear, like with Rob and Nicole, even if I think they're a closer partnership, it is clear that Jizlain will probably win. And that going to the end with him is dicey at absolute best and like a sure loss at worst.
And she knows it. That's the difference as well. Because she tells us in confessional, she floats the idea. She kind of knows she can't go with him, but she doesn't get the moment. She doesn't get a clear moment to cut him.
Well, there were moments though. And I think this is the thing, is that we can talk about what those moments might have been, but now her legacy is she enabled his win, right? Like the Rob Nicole thing, like she worked for him to win. And while she kind of speaks with Deb about maybe taking out Jizlain at times, she never actions anything. Like it never comes even close. Like Nicole was closer to taking out Rob by trying to like thread a very thin needle with Rob. Whereas Kass is never, like really never looking at taking out Jizlain beyond like some pretty vague conversations about it. And I don't really know what the plan was. And then to talk about now this final tribal council, and we can then talk about the opportunities she might have had to take him out. But yeah, to Audrey's extreme credit, she calls it out completely. And like in the game, I don't think a lot of people were coming to Kass specifically and being like, you need to take out Jizlain or you're going to lose. I think a lot of it was like, Kass and Jizlain are in charge. Like, we need to take them out as a duo, which they don't even do, obviously, or they're going to beat everyone. They, as a collective, will beat everyone. But I think there should have been more on, you, Kass, will lose to Jizlain. But at Final Tribal Council, Audrey asked specifically that. She asked Kass, why didn't you take him out? And Kass says something I did not like. She says, I wanted to face Goliath. Hated that.
Oh, I hate that.
Obviously, yeah,
you know how when they say to be the best, you got to beat the best? Yes, take them out.
By voting them out. Yeah, I think that's a
vote them out. Then you have ipso facto beaten the best. That's me.
Yeah. So she kind of asked why they went there together, and Kass says to beat the best, and Jizlain answered. Jizlain was really good at Final Tribal Council, but he answers saying she protected him. And then later Nabil's going to ask kind of what the other people's weaknesses were, and Kass kind of says that Jizlain was worse physically, even though he did win the final 4 and 5 immunity challenges, and he took her through and put the others in fire. A lot of her Final Tribal Council was very physical, which I didn't like. It was very much about her physical prowess. And Jizlain says that Kass's weakness was she empowered me to get here. She enabled me to get here. She was the one more than anyone who had the opportunity to cut me, and she didn't. And it was so good. It was a winning answer. It was a winning game. It's a unanimous winning game. And when you look back at Kass's opportunities to cut Jizlain, like, yeah, she's a key number. She's protecting him. She knows his idol is fake, which seems like important information to give people who might want to take him out. She knows for a fact because they've been working on that together. At the final 7, she finds the betting advantage that Cody had in 43, where you get to bet on someone. If they win the challenge, then you also get immunity, but no one will know until after the votes are read if you voted correctly. And she actually ends up giving it to Jizlain because she thinks she would be best at that challenge because it's like an endurance type challenge, and she doesn't win. But Jizlain, who's in the final 2 of the challenge with Deb, once Kass, or not Kass, whoever was third, once the third person drops, he drops himself because he was kind of close to dropping, and he celebrates as if, oh, great, I voted for Deb. And like, no, people are kind of half buying it. People aren't sure. And the kind of thought then is maybe here we'll try cause a tie, and we'll then be able to test if he's immune. And if he's not immune, we'll vote him out. Now, if Kass had jumped on board with that, she of anyone could have known to say, hey, I know he's not immune. Our whole plan was for him to bet on me. I actually found the advantage. And there was a lot of talk about, but we saw you pass the advantage, but he said he found the advantage and he kind of took the credit there. And there was a lot going on with that as well. But she had all the information at every time. He's not immune. His idol isn't real. Her number was paramount. Like, they tried kind of at that final 7 to take him out. It didn't go well. And if anything, Kass takes out Seb. She's part of the 3-1-1-1 to take out Seb. She feels
and we had to have a flashback to figure that out as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, so her original idea.
You can tell that she feels like she's losing some agency. She's losing reputation there with the vote betting, and she's still then at the final 60 with he's not immune then, and still it's just like, let's take out Ricky. And what's Ricky doing to anyone? So there's opportunities. Ricky's not doing nothing to nobody. Exactly.
Ricky's adorable. Her original idea with the champion vote bet thing was for her to bet on Deb.
Yeah,
and it's a shame that she didn't do that. However, well, then Jizlain might have gone without her having to write his name down.
But how much was she protecting Jizlain that even in finding her own thing, she thought the best chance for both of us to be immune, because she was playing the game so much for both of them, is for him to bet on me rather than taking the other bet for herself. I think that just really shows it. Like, not only was she thinking of voting him out at that moment, was she not thinking of voting him out? She was trying to protect him. She was voting out the people who were voting him out.
She had an idol. She could have been immune with Deb's win and played the idol on Jizlain, and they would have all been safe.
Well, that's what. This is the thing for me, is that at the final, at the reunion, at the after show, they ask her about it. And she's like, I emotionally could never vote out Jizlain, which is concerning. We can talk about it for AUV.
That's very concerning, yes.
But at a 7 or a 6, at 6 they find out about fire. But even without knowing about fire, like, you have an idol that's going to expire at 5. They end up, like, she plays her idol at 5 for no reason. He plays his fake idol. He outs it at 5. Like, that's how much they've dominated, that they haven't even needed to use these trinkets. She knows that she can win challenges. She knows that she has an idol. She knows Jizlain doesn't have these things, but still it never pushes to vote him out. To me, it's a little scared. Like, I look at like winners like Lisa, who was on the tribe with her, and Lisa makes that move against the ally, and that's the difference between a win and a unanimous loss. And Lisa could have gone to the end with Matt and lost as well. And that's the game that Kass played, which is so unfortunate, because that pair were really good. Like, they come back from that devastating merge vote and they pull off some crazy things. Like, the new groups they find themselves in while being huge threats, the two of them, is so impressive. But now the legacy of the game is you didn't cut Jizlain. You couldn't emotionally do it. You couldn't push yourself to kind of individualize. And I think this is why you get the Amanda Kimmel comparisons, because she's very well-rounded in terms of like social, physical, strategic, but she can't individualize beyond like a pair with Parvati or a group with Sari or the China group. And then she obviously has a very hard game that she can't defend at Final Tribal Council. And Jizlain just dominates. So I think that it's so interesting, that being her legacy when I look at it now.
Well, Audrey decides at Final Tribal Council that he will talk about how much work he did around the camp.
I love Audrey.
Which for 20 years has never been a good argument. But Kass does.
Wait, you can't just leave it at that. It wasn't just that. He got a blackboard somehow.
Oh, that was so funny.
And he'd written out all
the
their
inside
names.
of a chest that they had. I don't know where he got the chalk. Oh, I tell you, he got the chalk because he and Seb were in the chicken coop and they had to do a word puzzle.
They had to do a word puzzle. They got put in a chicken coop, which is also from Australian Survivor. Anyway, and he got a blackboard, and he was so sweet, but it was so wrong. And he was like, "Here are the 4 tenets of the game, like strategy, social, physical, and camp. And here are all of us." And he like added up the scores, and he's like, "I win by 2 points because I get 10 for camp, and they get like 7."
6.
Or whatever.
I think one of them got 6 and one of them got 7. He got 10 for camp.
And then Jizlain and the jury are like, well, camp is in social game because people won't like you if you don't do stuff around camp. And he's like, no, it's his own different thing. Anyway, he also got 0 votes. But Kass also got 0 votes, you know? Like, Kass also has to wear that she didn't take the shot.
Yes.
Take the shot.
Well, Jizlain, I think, could have been non-emotional enough to cut Kass, but he was also able to... He didn't turn on her at Final Tribal at the speeches, but he had no concern for her feelings or her reputation when he spoke about what he had done. And I think that's one of the differences as well. He didn't express reverence for her. I'm sure he's like so thrilled to have played with her, as he should be, because she took him to the end, got him to the end. But he was able to be sharper with the delineation of his game, I think. I was worried that she's going to have trouble delineating her game, and she kind of did. Because it's like two people don't win Survivor. Ask, Wendell and Dominic.
Yeah, well, the thing is, him bluffing with that idol was like a big part of the visibility of their pair. And then it also comes down to perception. Now, 48 like completely negated that for me. Like my whole thing was like, oh, if Joe's seen as like the main kind of threat, he'll win. You shouldn't go up and sit next to that. And in that, one specific circumstance, that's not how it panned out. And I did say that other people will try to do that and try to have their cake and eat it too by sitting next to an ally, and they will get kyled because it won't pan out for them. And for, not that she had seen 48, but for Kass, the perception was, and however patriarchal it is, but I also do think he was like the kind of the alpha of the pair. So yeah, the way that they were viewed was he's out in front. So he can take Kass. As they said, like, why did you take Kass? He takes her through at Final Four.
Yes.
He can do that because he's going to win, like that. He can have his cake and eat it too.
He also spoke very cleverly about why he brought her instead of putting her to fire.
Yeah. And he completely,
he said she'd win fire.
Yeah, and
then she would arrive here with one more mark, and I could take her and take that away from her. So he wasn't. This is where he could cut his emotion and he could speak about her in that way. It wasn't rude, but it was talking about using your closest ally as a piece as well as an ally. So I mean, and he got his unanimous vote. Yeah, people voted for him in tribal councils, but not enough, and not for a long time.
Yeah, well, and the thing as well with Jizlain is he doesn't need to cut Kass because he's going to beat her and she's protecting him. Like, and he said that, like, she's perfect for him, whereas he's protecting her, but she's going to beat her. And I think that just that post merge it wasn't smooth at all. Like to compare to like Elisa, for example, like, they're doing some cool stuff in New Zealand, but they're kind of dominating the whole time. And then she's like, now I need to cut Matt, and she does. Whereas that was not what Jizlain and Kass were doing. Like, they were in the trenches from the merge. It wasn't just like they did dominate, but it was in this like fluid, bouncing around game. Like, it never slowed down other than the multiple reward challenges over and over. But like the strategy never slowed down enough to be like, hey, maybe I take out Jizlain now. Like, she was just kind of they were just trying to keep their head above water, and they were doing that so impressively. But I don't think she was able to do that enough to say, okay, my head's above water, and now I need to cut Jizlain. Like, I think that was too much, and he was like her safety net within the chaos, and they were doing that so well together. I just don't think that she could have pushed it clearly to that. And I think that, to be honest, like, a better player would. Like, that to me is the win. Like, if she does that, it's like an all-time game. Like, even with the merge loss, coming back from that and then playing
almost with the merge loss, it's like
exactly
the ability to recover from that.
Yeah. And then if she would have cut Jizlain as well and win, that's phenomenal. And she has an idol. Like, then but the thing is, her not doing that is very, very telling. Like, that's an opposite game, as we spoke about with Nicole, not cutting Rob.
Well, saying that the feminist thing, anyway, let's not relitigate that.
Yeah. So that ends up being the legacy, which is so interesting because now she's on a tribe with Rob, and I'm like, this could be very good for Rob. Like, he could get the other like Amazonian beautiful woman,
or she learned.
She's
come back for the second time. I mean, they're all back for at least a second time.
Yeah, I hope she's learned, because I think that AUV World will necessitate extreme adaptability, and she had that to a point. But I think she needs to be able to individualize more. And I think she just needs more of a killer instinct. Like, she never voted out her closest allies. She vaguely talked about it. And then she had one ripped out from under her at the merge. And then she went to the end with one without ever really trying to cut him. At 6 makes no sense. His name wasn't even mentioned at 6. Why?
Yes.
Why, Kass? So, I've had a lot of feelings. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I was so glad that the jury actually spoke about it.
She wanted to work with Deb, but she always felt Deb was like, push me, pull you. So she was never quite sure about her. She was very fond of her. She liked the idea of women. I mean, it was very strong very frustrating. Like, Jizlain, you deserve your win. I'm never going to take that away from you. But it was another season where the women were fantastic and dominant and strategic and social gamey and wanted to work together. And yet a woman didn't win. So when there was time for the Deb vote out, she was so emotional about that she went and told her. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
danger. She was going. And I think Deb was happy because then she had her speech prepared for Final Tribal Council. But that is where her softness and emotionality showed itself. And I don't ever tell people that they're going. Just don't.
Well, she was playing the idol that night, so she was like particularly, and Jizlain was immune as well. I just feel like I don't like 7. Like at 7, she was upset that like Jizlain was taking her credit, and she was also felt like railroaded into the Seb vote at Tribal Council.
Mm.
And I
It's
just
almost like she didn't know he was going. I mean, it's
no, she did. Yeah, she voted.
She knew he was going, but she didn't know, and
she felt like it was like
wasn't her plan.
It was pushed. Plan. Yeah, but then after that, like, why wasn't Jizlain targeted at 6? Like, I just watched it and I still don't know now.
Yes,
I just think that was her safety net.
When we meet her, we'll ask her.
Yeah, well, I think that would be really rude. Imagine if on the next interview after UV World, I'm like, why did you vote out Jizlain?
Why did you vote?
Well, she knows she did the wrong thing. The whole jury asked her that.
Yes.
But the thing for me is it also is you never know with an after show. She's just lost unanimously. That's tough. The after show is tough.
It's also the after show, like immediately after you've lost and you haven't had alcohol for a very long time, and they put glasses of champagne in your hand. It's very difficult.
But she did say, like, I emotionally could never vote out Jizlain. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to, all right?
She knows that,
on
right?
a UV World. Like,
so how is she going to go? How is she going to go on the World Tribe, do you think?
Well, again, she's very solid without necessarily that like Pav or Saray style killer instinct that I've seen. My thing is she can connect with many different people, and she does. This is the whole thing, is that through the post-merge, through the pre-merge, everyone comes to her. She creates relationships with everyone. Through the swap, she creates new relationships. On the post-merge, she needs to continually jump to new groups. She has Audrey, who originally said he'd never work with her, working with her through to the final 3. So yeah, she can connect with a lot of different people. I could see her linking up with Rob. She's in a similar phase of life. Like, I just saw online that she's having a baby. Obviously, this is, well after filming, but she's obviously early 30s, like looking to start a family. So I could see her with like the Shawnees of the world. I could see her with like a Sarah. But my thing is, like, she won't know anyone. Like, again, I keep thinking about the people who are like too disconnected for me to be so high on them. And Kass is one of those people. But like in this limited amount of time that they have, then yeah, I think she can connect with people very well. I think that's one of her superpowers.
Yes, I think the lack of previous working relationships or social relationships, and also she and Tommy are working in a language that's not their first language.
How many people in Quebec speak English?
Well, a lot of them don't, as a matter of principle. Which, I mean, because I was wondering, yes, one of the, I don't know, I have no knowledge, no inside running, no nothing. But I would imagine one of the things when you're looking for someone from Quebec is the first thing you've got to say is like who is comfortable speaking English. I had a wonderful interview with Maxence from the Traders Quebec, and when I messaged him to say, would you come on, his first thing was, my English is really bad. It wasn't, but part of the thing that we had to do was make sure that we timed it and not to talk too long because it's quite tiring. So I don't know. I mean, she speaks English better than I speak French or Quebecois, and Tommy certainly speaks English better than I speak Finnish. But it does occur to me that that extra layer of having to think in communication may have a factor. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it may. I hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't. I mean, Rob Bentley, English is also his second language, so there's another one.
Well, Survivor South Africa, like South Africa is such a multilingual society that like often a whole thing with that is often people make alliances with people who, even though they're all speaking English, but yeah, like that's a connecting factor, kind of just same way many other like demographic things might be connecting factors. Google is saying that 13.8% of the population speak English as their first language, and 51% can carry on a conversation in English.
Yes.
So
but carry on a conversation in English
is different
and go into deep strategy and have to think and rethink. But
without the AI subtitles that I was
well, they don't.
I learned some French though. I feel like
you better have, because there's a quiz coming. Yeah.
Okay, because Victoire was one. And then you know what else I got? When he said, that they were going to win a Mexican fiesta. I was like, oh, I got that.
I don't know what that is. Yeah. Look, I would be much higher on Kass. I really enjoyed watching Kass. Yes, in the first half, the pre-merge, I knew to watch her because I was going to talk about her, but she's very charming. She's very magnetic. She's very charismatic. She's strong. She's flexible. She'd be fun to be around. But I think the lack of previous relationships, we don't know what she's watched. Presumably she's watched US, but she didn't present herself as one of the super fans of the season, like Dominic, who we adored. Dominic, we miss you. And you took your rock draw with such elan. It was fantastic.
Yeah, he took it better than I did. I was like, Dominic, tomorrow we were jumping in the bayou. Dominic, no.
Well, the rest of the tribe jumped into the swamp for him.
Yeah, it was just so upsetting because when they were going to rocks, I was like, anyone but Dominic. And then it was immediately him.
I mean, she could match up with Lisa, obviously one of my really strong favorites. She could have a connection with Parvati just in terms of, lifeness. They aren't the same, but there's something where I could see them being together. If she makes the merge, she might find, as you say, the Shawnee. I'm not sure a Luke and a David, not so much her style because Jizlain is not them, nothing like them, very stylistically different. So I'm trying to see.
He's a lot more down to earth.
Yeah.
He's not.
He had erratic. A lot more. He didn't have self-doubt, but he saw his own weaknesses and flaws really clearly to such an extent that he was able to shore them up and therefore win. So I think one of his strengths was seeing his weaknesses.
As an example, compared to the Lukes and the Daves and the Georges and the Tonys of the world that she might work with, I think she could work with a Rob. But Jizlain, when they voted out Audrey, he went, "Let's go!" in English, got that one too. And that was a whole controversy because they just blindsided her. Yeah, and he had said, "Let's go," and then he had to apologize at the next tribal council, and he felt bad about it. Do you think Dave feels bad if he blindsides someone and says, "Let's go"? So, and even Jean-Michel, who was kind of her erratic ally, his whole thing was he told people he was a psychologist, and then he wasn't. Even he was no one on Nawa was that crazy. I was gonna say no one in Quebec was that crazy, but actually Bayan, Audrey were a lot, but she didn't really work, and then she really aligns with Andre, Deb, and Seb. She didn't really work with the crazies.
Yes, Tony might be too fast talking and too crazy to work with. Tommy, I don't know. I'm watching Finland now. What's going on? I couldn't tell you, but he's a fine figure of a man, and I look forward to seeing him on the show.
He's a big fan. We'll talk about Finland next week when I've watched it, but. Yeah, I mean, I see she connects with so many different people, but there's definitely a lot of those younger women that could create something, maybe under Parvati's tutelage. But if she wasn't cutthroat enough for Survivor Quebec, no offense to Survivor Quebec, she ain't gonna hack it on this season. She needs to be a lot more cutthroat. She's
learned. Kass, in the past, we say, be more cutthroat, please. But I'm really looking forward to watching her. I'm looking forward to all of it, actually. I'm looking forward to all of it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, maybe you can be more cutthroat when you got to know these people last week compared to, the week she spent, seemingly. It was 42 days in total, but the week she spent with Jizlain.
67 episodes that she spent with them.
42
Multiple
days.
Rewards.
100,000.
Jizlain went on almost every reward, but she went on a lot of them. People picked her to go, if
that's
she
true.
Herself.
She was also that's another thing. It's she was picking Jizlain.
Mm-hmm.
She was picking him for rewards when she should have been cutting him, but she was just feeding him.
She fed him.
He was eating. I'm telling you, he ate every day. It was literally that Liz rant when she says you eat every. He did. At the auction, he got chicken wings, and then he went on an overnight reward. I think he was on that one. I was like. Yes. You're eating more than I am. No offense, Jizlain. It's not anyway. But you think these people would maybe want to starve out the biggest competitor and try and beat him at a challenge and vote him out? They're
no. Yeah. Deb picked him.
Yeah, you can't do that in AUV world. So,
no.
But
I mean, it depends what the structure is, and we know it's faster. I don't think there'll be overnight rewards, but there may be food.
I don't know that there'll be any reward. When's the time?
It might be immunity and reward.
This season is going to happen in the time that they were doing one cycle of Quebec, or what felt like one cycle.
Because it's not
like,
just the 67 episodes, it's that in a cycle there could be 2 reward challenges.
They often were.
Yeah.
They often were. It was sometimes like 5 episodes. It was like reward, enjoy the reward, another reward, immunity, tribal. Anyway, you guys get it. We watched 67 episodes, and I hope this podcast
if we mentioned it, yes.
Yeah.
But like for those of you who haven't watched her play, look forward to it. She's wonderful. She's really wonderful. So in my opinion, having never met her, I hope that she has I hope that her experience was enjoyable. Well, I hope they all enjoyed it, right? I hope they all enjoyed it.
Okay, I have 2 questions for you. Firstly,
yes,
what about it made you think it's one of the best seasons? Which is what you said.
Well, because I watched it most recently. You know me.
Yeah, the newest shiny thing.
I thought it was. I was very intrigued by the gameplay. I liked all the cast. There wasn't one that was like, oh, get rid of that person. I never felt get rid of that person about any of them. There were big players. There were slightly less big players. It was pretty much action-packed except for when it wasn't. I liked all the camp life that we saw. I liked the twists. I know you didn't. I sort of felt it wasn't fast necessarily, but it was pretty free-flowing. I like it when pairs and threes swirl and come together and go apart. And I think that's one of Kass's greatest positives, is that she is very flexible. As you say, Audrey said, I will, and this is the man who never tells a lie. Audrey said, I will never work with her. He declared this at Tribal Council in front of her, and then became one of her greatest supporters, and promised her he would never write her name down unless he was on the jury, in which case he would write her name down. One of the problems for Kass is her 2 guaranteed votes were in the final with her.
Yeah, whose fault was that, Kass?
Okay. Anyway, I really liked it.
Yeah, well, Audrey waited the whole time to see his wife. He a lot of his strategy was he really wanted to get to the family visit, and he held on. They had like a strength challenge, and he held on for so long, a pure just like mom strength, like when moms can lift a car off a baby. Mm-hmm. But then Kass won, and she took him, and he was so overwhelmed that she gave him that he said he would, and he meant it. He would always vote for her on the jury, and he'd never vote her out of the game. And yeah, she would have had Jizlain's vote. Without Jizlain there, she gets Jean-Michel. She definitely, if Audrey's on the jury, she gets Audrey. She beats anyone else if she takes out Jizlain. I kind of think, even if he had been taken out from under her, she would have had a really good shot against, an Audrey
even if she engineered Jizlain's downfall, he still would have
voted for her. Oh, yeah, but I mean, if she takes out Jizlain herself, she's all-time player, and she definitely wins. But even if he's taken out from under her, just for how impressive her game had been, obviously you could point to that, 2 massive blindsides of an ally, and I still think she would have had a pretty good shot. So
she needs to go with Ricky and Nabil, or Ricky and Deb, or some sort of combo of that.
People didn't respect Audrey as much as I love Audrey.
They liked him. They liked him, but they didn't respect him. With his little blackboard and the emphasis on 25% goes from your camp life. And the jury were very amused.
Audrey was actually playing, he hit the merge vote, he was the architect of that. He spoke about that at the final Tribal Council. But then he kind of started losing it because it was a lot of I just want to get to the family visit, or I have a safety without power and I'm just going to leave because I don't want to be here. And people weren't liking it fairly.
They needed his vote, and his allies needed his vote.
Yeah.
They managed without him, but they actually needed his vote that round.
It's
I thought,
often
that's not good.
The safety without power thing is funny because often it's okay, I'm really scared about being vulnerable, but you need my vote. He wasn't scared about being vulnerable. They did need his vote. He just didn't want to be there. So he left.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeet.
So, and that's probably a reason as well that she could have sat with him and not just.
And what else would you like to know? You said there were 2 questions.
Oh, well, I was thinking when you talking about the season, I'm to be fair, Bayan were cracked, and they went. Then there was a pre-swap. Well, no, post-swap, a pre-merge rock draw. The merge was very exciting. If you look at it, but to be fair, a lot of that is buried in time. But I still think, and a lot, it's, you have to take the good with the bad. All of that is true, and there's snap edge of extinction. So that has things like that have to weigh down. So that's why I say
but it gave us Audrey. It gave us Audrey for many more episodes because the editors loved Audrey on Edge of Extinction. By herself, she was doing the most. As
but it
each
wasn't
person arrived, she was doing the most.
It wasn't Edge of Extinction. It was like Exil.
Still.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, you take the good with the bad. That's how I would describe the season: fun and absurd. That's how I like a fever dream.
How I like my Survivor. Yes.
And I was going to ask what you thought of Patrice, the host, another white
Patrice.
man in a button-up.
Sadly, it's another white man, but he shot to my top. He's so enthusiastic. Not my top. JLP is the top, never to be toppled. But Patrice's enthusiasm is more open than JLP's, but probably as strong. He's clearly a fan. He can't believe where he is. Yeah, but he also is, he's not like a Beau on Australian Race Around the World. No, what's it called?
Amazing Race.
The Amazing Race. Beau, who didn't know what he was doing for 2 seasons, but was charming and wonderful, and he now has found his feet. Like Patrice had his feet straight away. It was in the game. He was with the game. They obviously really liked him. So sadly, another white man when, where are the not white men who can run this show? There's plenty. But Patrice, I liked a lot. What about you? What did you think of Patrice?
No, Patrice was great. Patrice, I liked how he had a little bit of an edge to him. Mm-hmm. He kind of would give it back to the players. I think at one point, Seb had been really bad on the balance beam. And then afterwards, when he got across Cerise style, he was it's for my daughter and she's good at gymnastics. And Patrice was well, maybe you play Survivor, but we leave the gymnastics to her. Things like that. He had a little bit, he had humor to him, which was great.
And I really enjoyed him get away at Tribal Council, if they were
a lot of whispering.
Not that anyone ever said, isn't it time to vote? But it's I will say what we are doing now. With a smile on his face. I loved that.
Yeah, he was good. Did you have a game for me?
I do have a game for you.
Is it about my French?
Yes, because you've been listening for 67 hours to
Very
French.
Passively.
I want to. Yes,
in 2 times.
I just want to see what you know. I have a few for you. Victoire, yes. All right. So I'm going to give you the first one.
Okay.
Précédemment en Survivor Québec.
Previously on Survivor Quebec.
Perfect.
Which I also always skip because I just watched it.
Yes, but you heard Patrice say it. Le swing vote. Le swing vote.
The swing vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Élimination par surprise.
A lot of this I could try and work out for context clues as well.
Yes.
Elimination what?
Par surprise. Surprise.
Surprise elimination. Okay.
Which is also called?
I need the inflection.
Yes.
Yeah, when was that?
It's called a blindside.
Oh, blindside, right.
Yes.
Okay. I thought they were
Why don't you try this one? Le blindside.
Yeah. Did they really say le blindside?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the things you missed on 2 times. That's wonderful.
Le fusion. Le fusion. Perfect. Immunité. See, you know it all. Immunité cachée.
I don't know what the second part is.
Cachet. Cachet.
Oh, reward.
No, reward? Immunité.
Oh.
Cachet.
I thought cash prize.
Hidden. Yeah, hidden immunity.
Okay, right.
Yeah. 100%.
First it was just kind of English with an accent, and now
now we're getting a little percent. 100%.
I don't know.
100%.
Okay.
Rapidement. Rapide. Yes. Okay, now it's getting a little harder, but you did hear it over and over again. Épreuve d'immunité. Épreuve d'immunité. D'immunité.
Yeah, I got the immunity part.
All right. Épreuve d'immunité.
This should be easy.
Or you could try épreuve de récompense.
No.
2 types of épreuve. You can have an épreuve d'immunité and you can have an épreuve de récompense. You can be recompensated. They're your immunity challenge and your reward challenge.
Recompensated?
Récompense.
Oh, they're just a challenge.
Yeah, that's the reward challenge.
Right.
You're going to get something. All right. 2 more. Collier d'immunité. Collier d'immunité.
But you think this would be easy. How many immunities are they?
What's the other?
Individual?
Nope. It's an object. Collier d'immunité.
Immunity idol?
Collier, like a collier.
Oh, immunity necklace.
Beautiful. And
got that one by myself.
Your last one is chaotique.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that's just English though.
Chaotique?
Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
Victoire. I got Let's Go. There was a whole storyline about Let's Go.
Let's go!
Yeah, that was English. So
it was English and it was rude and he had to apologize several times.
He still won.
There
were times when sometimes the scene didn't have subtitles at all. Like it was originally like to do with Kass and her idol. Like, I'm like, this is actually one Kass scene that's actually important in this pre-merge, and I'm just having to, like, I think she's telling Jean-Michel, I was gonna try and like, let me quickly learn my French, but no, I didn't learn French for this. I just watched that. It was a lot. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for this incredible amount of effort that you did. I hope people enjoy this podcast. I can't imagine what it would be like to listen to a podcast where we're explaining things, where we're deep in it. We just watched it. We're like, oh my God, can you believe that Andre and Audrey made up and then she was blindsided out from under him and they're like, what? So I get that it might be confusing. Hopefully there is enough macro takeaways here about the season and Kass's game that people enjoyed it and that people got their Quebec fix.
Yes. AI didn't know the difference between Andre and Audrey. It often just threw up a name, thought, I think they're talking about, and had a lot of problem with gender pronouns.
Yeah, I was still getting that from context clues. It was also like, it was hard, like they called like Andre's wife his girlfriend and then he like re-proposed to her, but they clearly were already married. But again, being able to get like even like try and work out those details on that level, I will say is a gift now compared to Finland. So Finland's going to be a lot rougher. And I'm also like more at the end of my tether, but we persevere.
Yes,
this was really fun. I'm glad
we
did this.
Me. Yeah,
so thank you for volunteering to watch Survivor Quebec. It's a big favor to me and the listeners. I really appreciate it. Tell the listeners what they can find of yours.
Well, they can talk to me on Blue Sky at Sarah Carradine. I'm not on the bad place anymore, only on the good place. If you've watched Survivor Quebec, or if anything from this podcast interests you, please DM me. Otherwise, you can find me every week talking about true crime with the great Murray Forth on our show, Crime Scene. That's SEEN. It's a pun. And you can go to crimescenepod.com or on Blue Sky, Crime Scene Pod. How about you, Shannon?
Yeah. We're doing, the preseason podcast. I'm watching Survivor Finland. I'm trying to find this photo of Oliver. When did I start watching the season? This is not good podcast content. Anyway, I will give my plugs while I do it. Australian Survivor. We're doing all of these previews, and then on August 17th, the season will premiere, and we'll talk about that at Shannon Guss, WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com, so that you don't miss any of that. When did I start watching this? How long have I been watching the season for? It was just an endless loop at all times.
We spent a lot of our messages during this time were, what are you up to? I'm still watching. Are we still watching this?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying this? I don't know where I am. Yes. Victoire! Victoire!
I found it immediately. Okay, not immediately. It actually took me ages. But I don't know if people can see. This was my
Olivier
Instagram story. It's Olivier with his giant hat. And then now I need to go under the radar. Yes. That's going to be the hardest thing because one, I have a big hat. That was at the very, very beginning. And I was like, I like this show.
You're in.
I was like, I'm all in. So yes, this was fun. Thank you to all of you for being a part of it. Thank you, Sarah, especially.
Of course.
Because this was a massive ask. And
thank you, Shannon. You are an absolute gift to this community. You are a gem. You are gold. You are beyond price.
But thank you. But say it in French, because I understand.
Ah, oui, oui. You are un gros menace. I didn't give you that. That's a big threat.
And Jizlain was, but Kass is fine. She learned some lessons. She's immediately going to play again. Yes. And we're excited to see it. But thank you so much, Sarah. Seriously, genuinely, thank you More than anyone who's been on the podcast. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to our listeners.
It's all right. No one's listening. It's okay. It's fine.
I think the people are like, people wanted to hear about Quebec.
Yes.
This is the best one. No
But maybe not from us.
No, I mean, who else are they going to hear? Okay, beggars can't be choosers, all right? This is the Quebec podcast.
All right, you beggars.
We watched Quebec. This was the Quebec podcast.
We watched Quebec, so you didn't have to.
Yeah, even though Sarah thinks it's one of the best seasons ever, and parts of it are.
One of the best.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.